Namaste, everyone. Thank you guys for showing up to this workshop called Reset Your Pandemic Mind. There's a lot to cover today, and I hope you get something out of this. 2 months ago, I got really inspired to create this workshop. Honestly, because I used to own Half Moon Yoga, like a block down the street. Donna had it before myself. I owned it for 13 years. And when the pandemic hit, when the first cases, I should say, back up came to Nashville, it showed up in yoga studios in Nashville. And yogis will oftentimes, and teachers, will bounce around to the different yoga studios. And a lot of our clientele was in the older bracket, from 40 to 85. And so not really understanding what was happening and not really having all the information or the pieces, which we still don't really have. I decided to honor ahimsa, do no harm. And I decided I'm just going to close the doors. And it was a week before the mayor made us close the doors. So we were proactive. We shut down a little bit earlier. And then when June hit, I knew that the business wasn't going to survive. So I had to close the doors. I had to move everything out of the studio. I had just relocated to Nashville, but it broke my heart. I went through a long period of grief of losing the studio and everything that I had built in the community. And it was sad for everyone involved because that was a very healing space. And needless to say, when I had to start kind of all over again, I started working for other studios. I worked for 4 different studios because I did not want to do the Zoom thing right away. I wanted to support local businesses. And there were a couple studios that I actually would attend in Nashville. Kundalini Yoga was one of them, or Kundalini Rising. And the other one was Liberation Yoga. And I was friends with the owners. I started working with them. I started working at the Hot Room because I still wanted to maintain the connections I had here in Franklin. And then I also started at a studio that's close to where I live now in Nashville called Unity. And 2 of those were closed within a couple months of me starting to work there because it wasn't sustainable. It's just not sustainable for a studio to have a lot of overhead and not being able to have classes. And then on top of that, we were wearing masks, we were being told, it's spreading just through breath alone. And so what is the main thing that we emphasize in yoga? Breathing. And so it almost killed the industry. I mean, there are 13 yoga studios that have closed in Nashville alone. So it's been a hard hit for us big time. And for a couple of years, I was just spinning my wheels like, okay, now that I don't have a space, how can I keep connection to the community? How can I keep them inspired to keep doing yoga, to keep meditating? Because when we are hit with chaos, when we're hit with challenges, when we are under a lot of stress, typically yoga is the first thing to go away. And that's actually when we need it the most. And so knowing that myself, and knowing that from a personal standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint, I was like, so basically I started doing everything I could, teaching at 4 different studios. I was also teaching different online classes. Anyway, I felt a little bit like a hamster on a wheel, just trying to figure out how to maintain the lifestyle that I have and maintain this career that I absolutely love, that I feel so passionate about. And it's been really hard. All of us have been affected though. That's just my story. I know every single person has been affected at, yes, a personal level and a professional level. I have lost friendships through this. I have lost a business through this. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have accumulated. And I just want you to know you're not alone in this. We're all dealing with this heaviness, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and just, we're gonna talk in the first hour just about the pandemic and the effect that it's had on us, especially our minds. And then we're going to switch gears and we're going to practice. We're going to do some Kundalini yoga, some Kriyas, and we're going to do some restorative yoga, and we're going to do some chanting with mantra meditations, which is what you were writing down. And we're also going to do a little bit of a journaling piece. All right, so this is what I want to start off with. So much change has happened since 2020. But let's not forget, there was already a lot of chaos and a lot of polarity before that happened. And I know you just moved here from Brazil, so you weren't here. So we'll kind of fill you in. You probably saw it on the news. There was so much division that it was a cause of concern, right? I mean, people were really trying to maintain themselves through that polarity and through all that division, because there was this fear of, is there going to be more civil unrest? We already had a lot of civil unrest. We had a lot of protests happening. We had protests with the Me Too movement. We had protests with Black Lives Matter. I mean, and I know there's been others, right? Protests for Trump, protests against Trump. You know, I mean, it's been never ending. And then the pandemic hit. So that was already a lot. Since then, there's been even more division, right? We've been divided about COVID, right? I don't think anybody can deny that it's real, but in the beginning, people were wondering, is this even real or not? And then when it started hitting closer to home, people understood, oh yeah, this is for real, right? And it ran like wildfire all across the globe. Within this, there's been a lot of information coming at us, and there's also been a lot of misinformation coming at us. And with so much coming at us, I don't care who you are, none of us know 100% of what the truth is. We all have our own viewpoint of it. We all have our opinion about it. But we're not experts in these fields, right? I may have my own opinion about the vaccine, but I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I can't truly tell you from my own knowledge if it's good or bad, if it's poison or medicine, right? So there's this division with that. And now there's this division again with the war that's erupted. You know, there's just so much happening. With all that's happened, it can create more doubt, it can create more questions, it can create more fear, and it is inevitably creating more and more change, okay? We've had to drop some things, but we've also been able to gain some things. And so there's been pluses and minuses with that. It's easy to stay concerned and worried about the state of the world, but remember, worry is really a waste of time, because worry is projecting what we think might happen, but it hasn't actually happened yet. So we have to get off that hamster wheel of being worried about everything that's happening and every decision that's being made, because that is not helping us, and it's not helping the situation, and it's not helping the collective. I've been on this kick the last few weeks of reminding people everything that happens at an individual level or at a micro level is going to have an impact and an effect at the macro level or at the collective level. Same thing in reverse. Everything that's happening at the collective macro level is going to impact or influence us at a micro individual level. So if we look at the big arena of everything that's happening, we have to remember, I can only control myself. I can only control my own thoughts, and we'll get to that later, because sometimes we don't always think that we're able to control our thoughts, because sometimes our thoughts can get away from us, and sometimes they can turn against us, and sometimes our thoughts are the enemy. But overall, from a yogic standpoint, and since yoga and meditation is about taming, training, and controlling the mind, we understand when we put these tools and techniques into practice, we're only in control of what's happening here. We're only in control of what's being spoken here. And we're only in control of the actions that we're taking. And to put this into perspective with what Mahatma Gandhi would say, he said, be the change you want to see in the world. We have to be that change at an individual level. That's what he meant, at the individual level, in order to create the reality of what we wish the world to be like on the outside. It has to begin within. Like Deepak Chopra always says, happiness is an inside job. We can be happy even if there's a war going on around us. I used to share this story a lot, and I'll share it now. There was a little girl who was sent to Auschwitz during World War II, the worst place you could go. And she was small, and she was divided from her family members. You know, the men were separated from the women, the mothers were separated from the children, like horrific, right? They were stripped down naked. They were only given small portions of food. If you've ever seen the footage, they're like skeletons by the time they were rescued. And people were being sent into the gas chamber, but they didn't know it was a gas chamber. All they knew is people are going into the building and they're not coming out. That's about as much information as they had. They didn't know what was going on inside those walls. She saw family members going into that building who obviously never returned. But you know what she did? As a young child, she would close her eyes and she would imagine she was hearing beautiful pieces of music. She had been a dancer. She had been taking dance lessons before the war. And so she would get in her mind that she was dancing to all this beautiful music. Now, I'm not saying that brought her tons of joy in that environment, but she was able to transport herself mentally in her mind to a time where she was innocent, where things were good, and she was doing what she loved to do. That was her salvation at Auschwitz. That was her saving grace to get her through it. And she's written a book, like she's been very successful. So even though that's a horrific story, you can see she had the power inside of her to overcome it. So I just want you to know each of us have the power to overcome any of these challenges, hangups, and hiccups that we're going through now. Yogananda used to say, environment can be stronger than willpower. So even though this little girl was able to conquer the environment through her will, through her imagination, obviously not everybody can do that. Environment really can affect us at a cellular level. And that's where I want to take us into next. What type of environment are you taking yourself to right now? If we have all of this kind of happening outside and bombarding us through our senses, what environments are you choosing to take yourself into? For me, through all this, it's like, I want to be in a yoga studio. I want to be in a space like this that holds good energy, that has and holds good intentions, that is helping us to feel healthier and stronger mentally, physically, and spiritually. That may be nature as well. Being out in nature is a great environment to be in, because out in nature, we can breathe fresh oxygen. We can hear the birds singing with joy on this early spring morning. We can notice the sunshine kind of highlighting different things through the trees. We can take ourselves to the beach or to the lake or to a creek and just listen to the water that has an effect on us at a deep level. We can gather with like-minded people and have good, uplifting conversation. Or we can choose environments that could potentially create more fear and more drama and more chaos. And that is one reason why maybe some of our relationships have severed. Maybe some of those people were toxic in our lives, And there needed to be that separation so that we could be in our space and they could be in their space. It's a possibility. Think about when you are in your home, for instance, we're going to talk politics just a tiny bit, but nothing to trigger anybody. But when you have news on, like CNN or Fox, okay, they're one and the same because they are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constant news, constant. And a lot of the things are constantly being repeated. The only difference is their viewpoint. One narrative is saying this, and one narrative is saying this. It doesn't matter if you're following CNN. It doesn't matter if you're following Fox. There's a lot of fear-mongering that is within the news. Yes, we need to be aware of what's going on in the world. Yes, we need to pay attention to the things that are happening. However, if we get so inundated in it, it's going to lower our vibration. It's going to lower our frequency. It's going to drop us into that fear and doubt and dishevelment, when as yogis, we need to be up-leveling. Up-leveling means, it doesn't mean that we're just always happy and everything's rainbows and glitter. No, it's not that. But it's how, if I'm feeling that funk, if I'm feeling down and heavy, if I'm feeling fearful, how can I get back into that space of love, peace, joy, and light? How can I get from here to here? And it's also equally noticing what space do you go into, what conversations do you enter, what articles are you reading that takes you from here to here. Do you see what I'm saying? It'll take us either direction. And so our job as conscious beings is to notice when we're here and go, okay, what can I do today? What can I do in this moment to make me feel a little better, 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 until we're up leveling and we're in a better space mentally. Everything goes back to the mind. That's why we have certain concepts like mind over matter. If I said this just a couple weeks ago in class, I know a man who studied cancer his whole life, his whole career, and he lived in San Francisco, and he had a lab, and he was actually doing all the lab work to study cancer, to figure out what is the cause of cancer and how can we cure cancer. And he sold his practice after an entire career of doing this, sold it for multi-millions of dollars. And he decided he was leaving California, coming to the good old state of Tennessee. He bought tons of property, tons of land, gave half of it to the state for it to be preserved. And then he kept half of it, and he wanted to start a yoga and meditation center. Granted, it didn't take off, so it's not going. That was his intention though. And when I had a conversation with him and we were discussing it, he said, I knew after 30 years of studying cancer, I realized it all begins in the mind. And because it's a mental state that develops the physical state of disease, I had to at least do my part and try to start this center so that I could actually help people and actually go to the root cause of it, which is always in the mind. And nowadays, in science, they say, we think of the brain as being here, but the mind is not the brain. The brain is an organ. The mind is everywhere. The mind fills up the body. Memory is stored in the body. When we have trauma, when we have certain emotions that are stuck in the body, it's going to show up in different areas of your body. It could be in your hip, it could be in your shoulder, it could show up in an organ, it could show up as calcified tension that develops into pain. Disease, if you break it down, is dis-ease. Dis-ease in the mind and body creates disease in the body. So if we know this and science is telling us this, then we need to go back here, which is why I think this is an important topic. If we're going to reset the mind, if we're going to reset from the pandemic, we have to start with the mind. Okay. So just consider that for a moment. How are you filling up your environment? What are you reading? What conversations are you getting into? And allow that to be your standard or your standard of measurement anywhere on the spectrum. There's two, I'll talk about this a lot. There's two main emotions, love and fear. Under love comes all the great emotions, joy, peace, compassion, empathy, sympathy, like all these beautiful things, forgiveness. And then you come over here to the fear, anger, doubt, resentments, right? And there's an old parable, I think it comes from the Cherokee Nation, and I'm sure you guys have heard this. A chief was talking to his grandson, and he was saying, son, there's two wolves that live inside of you. There's a black wolf, and there's a white wolf. The black wolf is full of fear and anger and hatred. The white wolf is peace and joy and love. And he said something like, I didn't have this prepared, so it's just coming to me right now. I can't remember exactly how it went, but something like, oh, the grandson says, well, which wolf will win? And he said, it's dependent on the one you feed. The one you feed. So when I go home to visit my parents in North Carolina, they have Fox News on 24 hours a day. And as soon as I walk in the door, I'm like, can I turn the TV off? Because I don't want my head filling up with that noise. And I don't want my son hearing all that mess. I do the same thing when Rob is more prone to CNN. I'm like, not while I'm in the room. Watch it later. I'm not exposing myself to this. And it may not be that for you. It may be something else. And that's just how it shows up in my life. Same thing with depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety, maybe you don't feel it as fear. Maybe it's just anxious energy. Maybe it's having anxiety or panic attacks. Maybe you don't even think you're fearful about anything, and then that's just overwhelming you. That's a product of fear. Just like depression also is the product of fear. So depression is something, depression's hard because it is something that you can probably help to elevate yourself out of, but there's also times where you may need to see a doctor and get some therapy and get some medication to actually help to promote, a better or uplifted mood. So I'm not saying you don't need extra help with that, but we're going to be going over the tools that yoga and meditation provides today. All right, so we're going to talk about kleshas. Kleshas is written about in the Yoga Sutras. Kleshas is a theme that I did recently, and it's the root causes of suffering. And there's 5 categories according to the yogis. The first category is illusion. Not knowing the true state of reality. Are we not entrapped by that right now? Okay, I'm going to get political for a moment, but don't judge me for it. Because I'm not political right now at all. I've jumped off that train. I'm not political. I'm holding space. I'm neutral. I'm in Switzerland right now. And I have been since 2021. I'm not even a part of a party. Okay, so I have voted Republican. I have voted Democratic. I have voted Green Party. I really try in every election to stand back and go, okay, what are the main issues in the world? What are the main issues with our nation? And what are you telling me you're going to do about it? So I'm really kind of all over the board. But if you look back at the election or two before the pandemic hit, the Democratic Party was getting divided. Because here you have Bernie Sanders, all progression, and then you have someone like Hillary Clinton, middle of the road, or Biden, middle of the road kind of thing. Actually, I kind of see Bernie as middle of the road, but whatever. However you want to look at it. So it was already kind of getting divided because so much was going into Bernie Sanders' corner, yet all of a sudden the DNC completely derails him and then puts these other candidates in their place. Because that's not who they really wanted. And it came out, like they actually admitted he was done wrong. So already in the Democratic Party, there was a division. Same thing with the Republicans, right? We had the same thing happen when Trump came around. You had the typical Republican, and then you had Trump over here, the wild card, right? And even they got divided. So even in the political parties, it got divided. And what's really fascinating to me when you look at the pandemic and how we've handled it, it seems like, and I can say this because I'm witnessing it as a yoga teacher and who shows up for class, the liberals have become the most conservative. And the conservatives have become the most liberal. Think about it. The conservatives are the ones that aren't scared to be out. The conservatives are the ones that are typically fighting, I'm not saying 100%, but a portion are going against the mask mandate, right? They want the freedom to choose. And the liberals are the ones that are speaking, we got to do what they're saying to do. We got to protect everybody. We have to wear the mask. We have to have the mandates. Everybody needs to be vaccinated, right? So if you look at it, it's really interesting. It's like they swapped places. And that's why I choose not to be political right now. I'm like, I am so not being political right now. I am just rising above it and just watching the show because it's just kind of crazy. But even with the pandemic, which what has happened, and even with the vaccines, now there's been another piece of a division because we don't have all the facts. This narrative thinks they have all the facts, and this narrative thinks that they have all the facts, and then you've got the conspiracy theorist in the middle that's on their own path. And if you look back at history, and if you look back even at the history of your life, any rumor or any type of conspiracy, there's always some truth in it. It may or may not be 100% true, but there's always some truth in it. So why not just hold the space for it? You don't have to believe it or disbelieve it. Just be open and just go, I don't really know. That way you're not feeding the matrix of fear in either direction. You're just holding the space, ready to receive what you receive. It's important, I think, that we do hold space for everything and everyone as yogis, because we are supposed to be different expressions of the divine. We're supposed to be unique individuals. Your truth is not my truth, and our truth is not going to be your truth, right? We're all specific. We're all going to be unique based on our genetics, based on our conditioning, based on our life experiences. So many different things shape us into who we are. And okay, so illusion, going back to illusion. The illusion of, okay, was this from a market and a bat, or was this from a lab, right? We can have our opinion of what it is, but we haven't been told 100% this is what it is. So we're kind of stuck in this illusion of the, whoa, which is it, right? Same thing with the vaccine, right? Is it good for us or is it bad for us? We're kind of stuck in the middle, not really knowing. Like there's a lot of people intuitively are like, I don't want this for my body. And there's other people that are just gung-ho, give me all the shots, give me all the boosters. And I think it's important as yogis to learn how to respect each other's choices. And this is why the goal of yoga is liberation. Within liberation, it's the freedom to be able to choose. That is the pure goal of yoga, to free our minds up, to free our hearts up, to free our bodies up, and to recognize that we are free conscious beings here to make our own free will choices. So that is part of the yoga. The illusion of Well, you get the illusion, not knowing the true state of reality, right? So we've got that, check. That's a root cause of a piece of our suffering. The second one is ego. The ego can be empowering or it can be disempowering. And so there is this thing happening with our egos right now of, are we going to feel empowered by doing all the mandates what government is telling us to do, or are we going to feel disempowered by that? It could go either direction, empowered or disempowered. So the ego, yes, that's the root cause of one of our sufferings. We're already at 2. There's 3 more. The third one is attachments. The attachments to, I just want it to be the way it used to be, right? It's never going to be back the way it used to be. It's been too heavy. It's been too impactful. It's been too long to go back there. So it's the attachments that can also create the suffering. No wonder we're having a hard time. That's already 3 out of the 5. The fourth one is aversions. Aversions are running away from things that we think may harm us. Think about all the people that are still at home and refusing to leave their houses because the numbers are still around. That's an aversion. That's an aversion to living. That's an aversion to being out. That's an aversion to being the social creatures that we're meant to be. So there is another root of suffering. And the fifth one, this is the big one. The fifth one is the fear of change, fear of the unknown, and the fear of death. Bing, 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 bing. Right? That's like the biggest thing that's happened through this pandemic. Whether you just look at COVID, scared of getting the disease, scared of landing in the hospital, scared of dying, scared of passing it to someone else, scared of a loved one dying, scared of the unknown, scared of not knowing, well, if I go grocery shopping, am I going to catch this? If I take a vacation, is that putting me at risk? Right? That's a big one. So if we look at the yogic philosophy of the kleshas, the root causes of suffering, no wonder we're having a hard time, because all the pandemic falls under not one, but all 5 of these categories, which is pretty massive. Okay. Now, I'm going to pull up a few notes from it. So now I want us to talk about, we've got the root causes of our suffering. It falls into all 5. Now I want you to think about this. I've been saying this since the very beginning of the pandemic. We're all dealing with the collective trauma. It's a collective trauma. Trauma requires a lot of inner work, and trauma requires healing. So I want to tell you there's 3 different stages of trauma. The first one is acute trauma. And that results from a single incident. One singular incident. This is more massive than that. Chronic trauma, the second form of trauma, is when something's repeated and prolonged. This has been repeated and prolonged, right? We get through the first COVID spell. Oh, we're free again. Oh, nope, Delta's here. Oh, we're free again. Nope, Omicron's here. Oh, I think we're free again. Oh, no. Now there's another one's coming. It's prolonged. It's like never, it just keeps coming. That is chronic trauma. So I want you to realize, if you've been suffering, good reason, we've got 5 of the kleshas under this, and we have chronic trauma. There's a third trauma, and it's complex. And this is the exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, oftentimes very invasive on your life. Hello. So out of the 3 traumas, this falls into 2 categories, chronic and complex. This is some heavy stuff. Now, just to define trauma. Trauma is an emotional response to any type of terrible event or situation. So trauma can happen when you're in an accident. Trauma can happen when you've been abused. Trauma can happen when you go through divorce. That's emotionally traumatic. Trauma can be when you lose a loved one. And if trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event or situation, we can see how, yes, this is a collective trauma for everyone, for the whole world. And now I want to share with you initial reactions to trauma. Exhaustion. I go through spells where I have, and this is probably normal, but I go through, you know how you go through spells where your energy's high and your energy's low? That's normal. What is abnormal is when you just feel completely drained and exhausted. And have you guys not been feeling that more since the pandemic hit than maybe in the previous years? I know I feel that way sometimes. I woke up that way actually this morning. I woke up feeling exhausted, and I woke up this morning feeling a little depressed, honestly. And I don't get depressed. I do so much yoga, I don't normally get depressed, but I woke up feeling that way this morning. And that has been happening more and more since the pandemic. And I don't think I'm alone with that. And you just kind of testified that you've been feeling it too. So that's a sign of trauma. Confusion. Confusion is another one. And we're wrapped up in confusion because there's information and misinformation coming our way constantly with everything, even the war that's happening. Okay, we're gonna get to that in just a moment. Let me finish this. Remind me to come back to war. Anxiety is another one. Agitation. And agitation causes us to be a little bit more reactive. We tend to snap more or react out of emotion versus standing back, taking a breath, and responding from a mature standpoint. So, you know, be easy on yourself through this. Numbness. Dissociation. And that disassociation can come in whenever we do get triggered. There can be, and this, they talk about this scientifically, there is literally kind of a split between the mind and the body when we get triggered with trauma, where the mind's disconnected from the body and the mind is kind of running on overdrive. And we had everything swept out from underneath our feet. So our whole foundation got dropped. And then we're disconnected from mind and body. So one reason why I think the yoga practice is so helpful is because moving the body gets us into our body, and getting into our body gets us more grounded. And when we're more grounded, we get out of the head and drop more into the heart space. And if we're operating from the heart space, we're operating from the true intuitive center. This is the true intuitive center, even though we get the intuition voice in our head, even though we get the intuitive feeling in our gut, it actually stems from the heart. If we're not grounded, then we can't operate from the heart space, from the love space. Okay. Going back to trauma. Trauma can be caused by an overwhelmingly negative event that causes a lasting impact on a person's mental and emotional stability. And then I want to share this with you. When we are feeling triggered or stressed or fearful, we are in the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what can really drain and get us just exhausted. It's the parasympathetic nervous system that is the calm, collected, more peaceful state where we respond versus react. And the yoga, the breath work, and the meditation is all about getting us into the parasympathetic nervous system. If we are on the sympathetic side, the stressed out state, for a prolonged period, it can burn us out and it can actually shut us down. And again, that can create the disease in the body as well. So this is what I want you to hear. There are 5 simple steps in healing emotional trauma. The first one, being willing to heal. You have to have the will. You have to have the desire. You have to have the intention that you want to heal. The second one, accept support. And so one way that you're accepting support, you saw this workshop, it resonated with you, you felt like you needed it, you signed up and you showed up. The third one, seek assistance from trained professionals, which I think still falls under this category. I'm a professional, trained professional in this art and science and have been for 20 years. So I'm sharing with you my knowledge and the helpful tools that I have so that you can start to implement it to help you. Same thing with the therapist. If you're going to go to a counselor and do talk therapy, they're going to help you with their skill level. If you're going to go to an acupuncturist, they're going to help you with their skill level. You know, if you're going to go to a minister, they're going to help you with their skilled expertise. The fourth one, I love those. Practice meditation and mindfulness. And that's what this practice is all about. It's meditation in motion. It's being mindful of how you're setting up your body for poses, being mindful of how you're breathing, being mindful of the effect that it's having on your mind. Being mindful and present in the now on the mat can help you to be more mindful off the mat, you know, when you're doing other things. And the last one, incorporate movement daily. It's really, really important to move the body because, like I said, the mind is encased in the body. It's not isolated to the brain. So if we're moving our body, we're helping to reduce tension. We're helping to dispel stress. We're dropping out of our head, so we're not in that worrisome space. We're able to rinse out toxins. We're able to get rid of some, you know, emotions have to move as well. If we stuff all the emotions in, it's just going to collect in the body. The emotions need to move. So even being expressive through your voice, and through your motion is going to help with that as well. So already look at that list. You're here for some yoga and some meditation. I mean, you've got several of these checked off already. All right, so the next thing I want you to consider, how have your habits changed? So I'm going to share mine, and then I'm going to share, I suppose this is my family, so I can give you a few examples. Okay, so for myself, I opened this up at the dinner table the other night. I was like, so I want to know from you guys, I said, what I said, name me one thing that you've noticed that you lost and one thing you've noticed you gained. For me, and this was just an example at the dinner table, I said, I'm sad because I'm not out in nature as much anymore. I used to go walk every day at Aspen Grove Park because I live so close. I would do it every day. I would take a hike once a week down in Columbia. I would drive down there on Fridays and do a hike with my dog every week. I still get outside. I'm not saying I don't take a walk. I do, but I'm not doing it daily. I'm not doing the hike weekly. And I need nature to nourish my soul. So I know after doing this workshop and asking myself that question, this is something that I can easily bring back, you know. For all the people that have been staying away from yoga and yoga studios, and they're just waiting until the pandemic ends to come back, it's like, are there gonna be any yoga studios left if everybody had that attitude? There wouldn't be, you know. Nature, fortunately, will still be there. The good thing, the positive that I've gained, I'm a yes person. If anybody wants me to, you know, if anybody asks me to do anything yoga or meditation related outside the studio, yes, definitely, yes. I'll drive an hour, yes, I'll do it. And I'm still a yes person, but I'm able to say no better now. For instance, someone contacted me the other day and they said, there's a lady that I know in Leaper Sport. She just had major surgery. She's got things going on with her lungs. She needs to be taught pranayama. And this was a student that I had taught how to teach yoga, who knows all the things that I know. Maybe she hasn't been teaching it and practicing it, but she has the knowledge. She has the research and the books available to help her. And she says, will you come do it? I was so proud of myself because in the past I would be like, yes. I live all the way in Hermitage. That's a long drive for me. And I thought about it and I thought, I could pass this on to another student that I totally trust. If she doesn't trust herself with it, well, the other student didn't feel like she had enough of a skill level to help her, which debunked back to her, who was asking us anyway. And guess what? It forced her to teach her friend, and the person received it so well from her that now she's working with her. So actually it was good for us to say no, because then that made her feel confident enough to do it herself. And now she's doing it. So there was one weekend recently, it was Valentine's weekend. I had planned a workshop on Friday night. I had planned 2 workshops on Saturday, more than I've ever done. That was a lot, I know. And then that Sunday, I was teaching that morning. And then that Sunday afternoon, I was supposed to go to a bridal shower. So I was here in Franklin on Friday night. I did 2 workshops back to back in Mount Juliet on Saturday. Sunday morning, I went to teach at Mount Juliet, and then I was supposed to drive all the way back to Franklin for the bridal shower. And I wanted to be at that bridal shower. I wanted to be there. I had to say no. And I was like, I can't do it. Yes, I was available. I wasn't teaching at that time, but I knew that I had been working nonstop the whole weekend. It's like, I need a little time to myself. I need to be quiet. I don't even want to hear myself talk. And I've been around people all weekend. I just want to withdraw a little bit. I just want to be home. And I think that's a positive that has come from the pandemic. I do want to be home, and I don't have to say yes to everything. For my son Gabriel, unfortunately, he dropped reading books. He's not reading as much as he was. He's so inundated in music, and he is a musician, and that's fine, but I'm starting to bring a reading night back in the house. Like Friday night, I was like, we're all gonna read. And so we all sat around on the couch and we all had our own book and we started to read. And that's one way for me to try to get him to bring reading back. I forgot what he said in his game. I didn't write that down. For Rob, he dropped the news. Right? He used to watch news all the time. He doesn't do that anymore. And it's mainly because I'm like, I'm not watching that. I don't want to hear that. But he also realized on his own, he realized how toxic it was. Because we were watching CNN one day and I was like, do you realize we just watched the news that was all fear, 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 danger, danger, danger. And then it went into a St. Jude's commercial, which is all sad, pulling at the heartstrings. Then it went back into fear, 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 danger, 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 point fingers, blame everybody else. And then it went into the sad Sarah McLachlan song and the abused dogs, right? I was like, I just stopped it. I was like, pay attention to what we're being fed. Pay attention to what we're feeding our minds right now. Sadness, fear, sadness, fear, sadness. I was like, I'm not doing it, right? Okay. So the good thing with him is he dropped the news and he realized how much it helped. But the positive that I really loved hearing from him, because he's a workaholic, he works like all the time. He always has a guitar in his hands, even if he's not in the studio. He said, now I appreciate downtime. He said, I like being home. I like spending time with you guys. I appreciate the moments where I'm not at work. And he goes, I don't think I really appreciated that beforehand. Now he gets it. Now he's more present. For Ella, she said the negative was people being too opinionated. The children hate the polarity and the division and the name calling and finger pointing. Like they are so leveling up and rising above it. And it's great to see. And she didn't say a positive, or at least I didn't write it down. I'm sure she had one, but I failed to write it down. So I want you to think about that really quickly. Think about a positive you've gained from it, and then also write down something that you've lost from it. And something that you've lost from it, is it just because you dropped it? Is there a way for you to start bringing it back? So think about that, and you can write it down quickly. And then you don't necessarily have to write all this down, but you may want to. It's more or less questions that you can be contemplative with. But first of all, thinking about, do you know the source of your fear, depression, anxiety? Can you pinpoint maybe what is helping to create it or expand it, right? We've already given quite a few examples. And if you know what the root cause is, can you set action towards breaking the cycle? Is there any way that you can break away from that person or those things or those environments or situations that bring that to you? And then I'm going to bring up the war because, you know, right when we started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, boom, war, right? So I want to give you, I'm trying not to get emotionally invested in all that. And I read just enough to get kind of an idea of what's happening, but I'm trying not to get overly invested in it because this is the reason. We say this in yoga all the time. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if we're sending all of our attention to it, guess what? It's going to expand. It's going to keep happening. And it's going to get worse. As long as we're putting our attention to it, as long as we keep feeding it, psychologically, emotionally, and investing in it, we're actually feeding it, and it's growing. So it's not saying ignore it altogether, but where attention goes, energy flows. So here's a good way of looking at it, I think. Take it or leave it. I'm just bringing it from the yogic standpoint. I was listening to this podcast the other day, and it was actually an astrologer, and she's an intuitive astrologer. And she said, you know, she goes, when you're hearing and seeing the stories of the Ukrainians and the horror that they're going through, she said, instead of looking at them as being weak and feeling sorry for them and pitying them and just getting upset and crying about it, she said, why not flip it? And I think this is a good way of looking at it. Flip it and think, wow, how strong are they? How strong and resilient their spirits are to stand their ground. How strong and resilient are they to walk away from everything they've known, their homes, their possessions, to flee into another country that they may not know the language, they may not know a soul? How strong and resilient of them to be able to do that? Do you see the difference? How strong and resilient are these men and women who are not trained fighters or soldiers, but who are deciding that it's worth fighting for? I just love that. I was like, that is a brilliant way of looking at it. Why not feed the strength instead of feeding the misery? Here's another way of flipping the idea of Putin. And I know there's all kind of stories on, is he good, is he bad, is there something else going on? And let me just say this really quick. We don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, because history repeats itself. In every war that's ever happened, we're never told 100% of the story or 100% of the truth of why it's really started. We're given an idea of it, right? With the whole Iraq thing, we were told and fed nuclear weapons. There was no nuclear weapons. And that war went on for how long? So we don't know. We can't believe everything the media is telling us, because they only know a certain amount of information, and the government is only giving a certain amount of information. So we do have to stand back and get a broader perspective of, we don't have all the information. Just like the government was supposed to share everything that happened with JFK, they didn't. We were supposed to share everything that happened with 9/11, they didn't. We just don't know. So to take it back to Putin, you know, we could look at him as being, you know, this complete evildoer. And I think war is evil. Like, I think war is terrible. However, if we could look at it from a little bit more compassion, hurt people hurt people. How hurt is this man who is creating all this hurt on this other country? Like, hurt people hurt people. So if you can stand back and go, oh my God, he is so broken. He's so broken to upstart this. Do you see how it's flipping it? So instead of hating on it, you can be compassion. Doesn't mean like he gets the free wild card to do whatever he wants, but can you at least be compassionate on what is driving him to do it? So I like that flipping of the script in my head. And I don't know, take it or leave it if that would help you. There's something else I wanted to say about that. I'll leave it at that, so we're not going down that train. So I was a flight attendant for 12 and a half years. And we were taught and trained for emergency procedures. So every year we'd have to go through emergency drills. Like, what if you're in a smoke-filled cabin, what do you do? What if there's a fire? And if there's a fire, where is the fire and which extinguisher are you going to use? The hell under the water. You know, if you're ditching in water, how are you going to prepare the people to escape into the slides and onto the rafts? If you're going down without, you know all the scenarios. There's a lot of scenarios we're trained under, but we were also trained with terrorism. And before 9/11, we knew who Osama bin Laden was, because Osama bin Laden had targeted one of our planes with the bomb. This was years ago, late 80s, early 90s, but it was with the Northwest Airlines flight, and it was over in Asia. So we learned about him every year. We knew his name. We didn't know it was related to 9/11 and all that, but until later. But before 9/11, before planes were used as missiles, basically the terrorists would take a flight, steal the plane, land the plane, hold everybody captive. They might hurt or harm a few people to make their voices really loud. And they would basically be trying to blackmail or come to terms with the government to release their friends or family members from prison for whatever they had done. Generally speaking, that was what was going on. So we were taught to have the Stockholm to do the Stockholm syndrome. So if we were held captive, we would basically try to put ourselves in their shoes. We would basically be compassionate towards them. We would start a conversation with them to ask them about their family, to get to know them at another level if they were willing. And also to let them see that you're a person that also has a family. And you were trying to create this, basically a connection with your captor. And that was the training we had to get out alive, basically, and to save as many people as possible. That was the trick that worked before 9/11. After 9/11, everything changed, right? So that training was out the window at that point. But I want you to think about this now. Have you gotten used to the pandemic? Are you used to the energy of the lockdown and the feeling of isolation? Are you used to the shots, the mask, the restrictions? Are you believing it can't be over? It's just going to be never ending? Has it dimmed your light? Are you keeping the pandemic spell alive? Are you recycling the same thoughts and attitudes and fears concerning the pandemic? If so, you have the Stockholm syndrome. We've developed, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see the connection? We've developed the Stockholm syndrome to the pandemic. So we're going to use the next hour to try to use some tools of yoga and meditation to break out of this recycling. And whatever I share with you today, I want you to try to implement it. We're going to do a different style of yoga than I normally teach, but it's for the repetition of movement in order to get us into a state of stillness, in order for us to get into good mindset for the mantras that we're going to do. The last thing I want you to write down is I want you to think about how our thoughts create our reality. Everything begins with thought. Thought is the beginning of creation. Thought is the beginning of an idea. Thought is the beginning of an action step. Thought is the beginning of everything. And there's this expression in the New Age, well, it's not just New Age, it actually is ancient knowledge. Change your thoughts, change your life. Change your thoughts, change your life. And so I'm going to have you write an affirmation. And your affirmation should begin, it should be positive, it should be an I am, or just very affirmative and positive. So the one that I wrote, I am delighted to be alive right now. I am grateful for this experience. I know that I'm here for a reason. Life is still magical, and I choose love to be a magnet for miracles. That's the one I wrote. I want you to create yours. And so remember, sometimes we had to flip the script. So if you're always feeling depressed, I am depressed and depressed about life or whatever, you're going to flip it. Because in the yogic philosophy, it says when you have a negative thought, think the exact opposite. Flip the script. So write down an affirmation that pertains to you and how you're trying to reset your mind. For instance, if you've been feeling stuck, you could say, I am full of creativity. Creativity is ever flowing from me. If your typical statement is, I am depressed, I am glad to be alive, and I know happiness is an inside job. Does anybody want to share theirs? You don't have to.
I can share.
Okay.
I will because, well, now I miss a lot my family. So I was thinking, and it's what I try to think every day instead of saying, oh, how much I miss them. I'm so glad and so happy to be here because this was my dream for a long time. So I worked for that. And I had a promotion at the job, so that's why I'm here. So I'm really happy and I'm sure that they are also. So even they miss me also, I think that they are also really happy because I'm building a new life, new chapter in my life, and building my professional and living my dream as well.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's like even though you miss them and you could be down and out, you are fulfilling your dream. You've manifested this. It's huge.
Yeah.
And how brave of you to move that far away in a land that you haven't been to and don't know much about, and during a time like we're in, right? Because I'm sure your family is like a big support group for you. Yeah, it's amazing. Then, and we talked about this hit under every category of the Kleshas, and this is not just one type of trauma, it's two major types of trauma. We've made it, like we're making it, you know, we're doing it. We are adapting to change. We are navigating this as best as we can with what we have available. I mean, honestly, I don't know how we didn't just freaking collapse economically in those first few months, the way everybody typically is on paycheck to paycheck, right? And then not having that. We've come through a lot. And so the good news is we can get through other things too. This war that's happening across the world, there's been many wars. And life still is on the continuum. Humanity is still on a continuum. Life is still rolling. We got this. We truly have got this. And I hope you feel that state of confidence. So with your affirmation, I heard this the other day from a numerologist, and I wanted to share it with you. And I am putting this into practice to give it a go myself, because I'm a big believer in affirmations. But there's this numerologist that I was listening to, and she goes, I'm going to share my secret on how I manifest things. She said, I used the formula that Tesla offered. 3, 6, 9. So Tesla was the one that came up with 3, 6, 9. Those are really important numbers in the whole makeup of creation. Everything's mathematical. 3, 6, 9 are big numbers. Now, this is just something new that I've learned and something I'm going to try to implement too. She said, if you're trying to manifest something, and right now we're trying to reset the mind, whatever affirmation we came up with, I want you to say it 3 times aloud or within, 6 times a day for 9 days straight. And use that formula, 3, 6, 9. Say it 3 times, 6 times a day for 9 complete days. And this will be your homework that you can take with you. And then I highly, of course, suggest that you practice mindfulness, yoga, and meditation daily, because that is how we heal trauma. It was on the list. Move your body, practice meditation, practice mindfulness. If you're practicing yoga, meditation, and mindfulness daily, and you could just do it at home, it doesn't have to be a whole hour. You could do like 20 minutes of it, you know, 5 minutes of breathing, 10 minutes of movement, another 10 minutes of relaxation or meditation or something. It doesn't have to be a long period, but if you're doing that daily and then adding in these affirmations, you're going to reset your brain. You're going to reset your mind, and you're going to feel better. Guaranteed. All right. Now, let's do some yoga. So you may want to start off sitting on your bolster. Not directly on top, but scooting towards the edge. If you're at home, you can use a pillow or a cushion of some sort. And we're going to do 2 types of breath work. And the types of breath work we're going to do is recharging, energizing, and lifting. I feel like we need to lift up the vibration after all that discussion. So the first one I learned from Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. The hands are in front of the shoulders. And then as we inhale, we lift the arms, we splay the fingers wide. And then as we exhale, the hands pump back down. And it's a short, sharp inhale and exhale through the nose. It looks like this. And then we keep it on repeat. And then you can close your eyes. Okay, so when you're ready. Three, 2, and 1. Relax the back of the hands onto your lap. Keep the eyes closed, palms open. You may feel a surge or a tingling sensation for your arms. That's energy that we generated. So just let that become reabsorbed in the body. We're going to do another round when you're ready, hands and fists. Three, 2, and 1. Relax the arms down. And breathe. Anytime we extend the arms or the legs, it usually helps to bring extension into the vertebrae. So you may notice you may be sitting a little bit taller. This is also allowing the prana to kind of circulate more in the heart space. We're going to do one more round. Three, 2, and 1. Relax and breathe. And notice you're sitting a little taller. Your heart's a little bit more open. You have a little better posture. That better posture helps to promote a better breath. And the better breath helps to connect the mind and body. And the breath helps to drop you out of your head and back into your heart. They use that breath work a lot in a program called The Art of Happiness. So it actually is a little bit of joy juice for you. Now place your fingers into your palm like you're hitchhiking. And you're going to lift your arms like a Y. Y for yoga. And we're going to do a pumping of the belly. So just try to pump the belly in. Okay, relax those muscles. And then we're going to add in the breath work, which is the breath of fire. And it's a forced exhalation through the nose. You don't have to think about inhaling like you were before. The in-breath will naturally come. So it looks like this. Okay, ready? Let's begin. Three, 2, 1. Relax your arms down. Relax and feel. So as we're pumping the belly in, right behind that diaphragm muscle that's doing that pumping action is the stomach. And in Chinese medicine, they say we hold stress and worry in that organ. So we're cleansing the stomach at the same time, cleansing that out of our system. All right, let's do that again. Arms up like a Y, thumbs up. When you're ready, breath of fire. Three, two, one. Relax the arms down. And just practice some natural diaphragmatic breathing, which is a more calming breath. Allowing the belly and chest to fill out on the inhale, allowing them to softly deflate on the exhale. Open up your eyes. We're gonna come away from that bolster, so slide it away, and you're gonna sit directly on the floor. We're gonna slide the hands to grab a hold of the shins, and then inhale to cow, exhale to cat. And so if you need to go slower, you're just gonna inhale, crank the shoulders back, open your throat wide, exhale, pull the navel in and bow your chin to your chest. And if you want to do it a little bit, I'm not a trained Kundalini teacher, but we're doing Kriyas today. You can inhale, exhale. So you can go at a slow pace, or you can do it in this more rapid pace. I would suggest if you're going at a more rapid pace, just close the eyes because your drishti will be changing with the head lifting and descending. Three, two, and one. Hands are going to rest alongside the hips. Now, dependent upon your shoulders will be dependent on if you want to turn your hands or not. So if you wanted, for instance, to do this, right, with palms open, or if you just wanted to keep it palms down, this is the way I do it. Palms open as I breathe in, palms down as I breathe out. That may or may not be too much for your shoulders. So just check in, make it work for your body, but it's going to look like this. Okay, so it's a pretty quick motion. Again, if you need to slow down, okay? Think about cleansing your aura, which is the energetic field around your body. They say that this can be measured about 20 inches above, below, and encircling the human form. Three, two, one, and relax the hands down. And take a moment just to feel the effects of all that. The energy or blood flow that you feel circulating within. See if you can magnetize it towards the third eye, the center of your brow. Remember as a kid, there was like a man's face, and it had little magnets in it, and then there was a pen. And they still sell them at Cracker Barrel, actually.
Yeah.
And then you can make a mustache or hair. So I like to think of that little apparatus as a way to describe how we're trying to use our inner awareness to magnetize all that energy here to the forefront of the brain, which is our intuitive center. It's our bird's eye view center. It's gaining a new, broader perspective of things. It's able to hold everything with compassion and neutrality. Okay, and then open the eyes. Look down at how you cross your feet, and you're gonna cross them the other way. The fingertips are gonna curl in towards the shoulders like this. And this is another one, slow it down if you need to slow it down. I'm gonna go pretty quickly. And you're trying to move with your breath. So the breath leads the movement. So in other words, if you're going quicker, the breath is quicker. If you're moving slower, the breath is slower. Twists are said to be some of the most cleansing of the yogic postures for everything that it does for us internally. Think about washing away the debris of the things that have been holding you down or keeping you feeling heavy. Anything that's been stuck or becoming more stagnant within. Three, two, and one. Come back to center, hands down to the lap. And we're gonna swirl in circles with the upper body. Don't worry about how high or low you need to be over your lap, because I know we're all a little different. Depends on your waist, it depends on your low back, it depends on your SI joints, it depends on your hip flexibility. I inhale on the way up and exhale down and around. And again, you can go at your own pace. Now, this particular Kriya is a good one to remember if you find yourself embedded in fear, because this is good for the kidneys. Chinese medicine says that we hold anxiety and fear in the kidneys. Come all the way back to the top, take a brief pause, and notice how the energy feels like it's just spiraling or circling in one direction. And then we're going to reverse that flow when you're ready. So if you went clockwise before, take it counter. If you were going counter before, now take it clockwise. I thought we would do Kriyas today. This is not normally the style that I teach consistently. But Kriyas are something that New Yorkers have really been embracing, because there's so much stimulation around the city that it's difficult to meditate when you have so many distractions and you're on stimulation overdrive. So Kriya, they've discovered, is a great way to prepare the body and the mind to be able to just sit and just be. That's another reason why I'm taking a brief pause at the top. Go ahead and come to stillness. Open your palms and just feel how you can almost drop into that state of meditation. Just with a little bit of that work. All right, we're gonna flip down to our backs. I'm losing time. I wish we had another half hour. So when you come to your back, you're gonna stretch out into an X shape. Arms overhead, legs sprawled out. And on the inhale, we're lifting the right hand, left leg up. Maybe tapping the toe, don't worry if it doesn't touch. Exhale, release. Inhale, other side, right leg, left arm. And release. And you're going back and forth between the two. Again, finding your own pace. One more to each side. And then relax. Hug your knees into your chest. All right, we're gonna do what one of my original teachers called dead bug asana. And well, she actually did that for heavy weight pose. So it's similar to that, it's not the same. I like to call this June bug asana, because if you ever seen one of those big green beetles that we get in the summertime, when they flip on their back, their shells are so heavy, their little legs are just flaring in the air. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna lift the feet, but the knees are bent. The arms are up. And you're just gonna start shaking your hands, shaking your feet, shaking your arms, shaking your legs. Just like a June bug trapped on your back, wanting help and assistance to get back up and be able to fly away. Shimmy, shimmy, shake, shake. Hug the knees back in. Feel that tingling sensation. Let that integrate into your body. Perhaps drawing and magnetizing it up to the brow. And then roll over to one side. So I had planned to do a little bit more physical activity, but I really want us to move more into the mantras. Because, you can go ahead and sit up. A mantra means a mind tool. A mantra is supposed to replace the ordinary, everyday, habitual thinking patterns that we have. And so you're going to be listening to Ramada Sa, Sa Se So Hum. That was one of the mantras that you wrote down. Just so you know, Ra means the sun, Ma means the moon, Da means the earth, Sa means the infinite one. Sa Se So Hum means may we merge with the infinite one that created the sun, the moon, and the earth. Okay? This is used by the, well, it's used a lot in Kundalini Yoga, but the whole intention of it is to be a healing mantra. And if you ever go to a Kundalini gathering, which they usually wear all white, and here I am in all black, but they usually wear all white for purity, and they're in a circle, and they sing Rama Da Sa, and you'll be hearing it in a minute. And then anybody who feels compelled to move into the middle of the circle for healing goes into the middle of the circle to sit or to lie down to absorb, while everyone in the circle is singing and chanting it along with the music. It's very, very powerful. I want us to chant verbally the second one though. So what we're gonna do with Ramadan Sa right now is we're gonna, I'll let you choose whether or not you want blocks. We're gonna take a restorative back bend, and you can determine, hey, you can have your legs straight, or perhaps you wanna open the hips. And if that's the case, feel free to use the blocks underneath your thighs when the feet come together. And then I'm gonna find this version in song so that you can listen to it and absorb it. And even if you know it, right, just repeat it internally in your mind, with a whisper or out loud, whatever you feel compelled to do. This version, this artist is called Snakam Kaur. I can share that with you after class, because this would be a mantra I would recommend using to heal from this trauma. Notice how the contour of your body is opening the heart. And I want you to picture your heart pulsing with a beautiful color of pink or green. These are the two colors for the heart chakra. Lush, rich green, or maybe a soft petal pink. And imagine your heart pulsating with that beautiful color of light in every direction. Send the ripple effects of this light to your neighbor, beyond this room, into Franklin, throughout the state, into the nation, and across land and sea. Stay present with the mantra and music. Continue envisioning that beautiful green or pink pulsing from your heart. May we merge with the infinite one that created the sun, the moon, and the earth. Take 3 deep breaths. Go ahead and float your knees back up and together. Rock them gently once the feet are flat, side to side. Once you get that little mini twist in from side to side, you can turn over to your right side, which allows more space for the physical heart. Come up to take a seat on top of the bolster. Whenever I just hear that mantra, it's very moving to me. Part of it is just her voice is so sweet. But another piece of it is just the message in it. You don't even have to know what it means, you can feel it. And but just imagine if we had a room full of people in a circle and we had the music loud and everybody was chanting it and moving to the center of the circle. Please use this mantra as part of your personal healing. You can play it in your car, you can play it at night when you're going to sleep. It's on YouTube, you can find it for free. You can run it through Spotify or something of that nature, and I'll give you the artist's name after we close. But we're gonna switch gears. I wish we had some more time, but there is a class after this. Your other mantra that you wrote down, this is a mantra that the Sikhs use, and it's considered to be alchemaic for the mind, to help to turn negative thinking into positive thinking. And this is one of those mantras that's been used thousands of years, okay? It's Ekankar, Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad, Ekankar. So even though it says Satguru, it's Satguru. So it's Ekankar, say that with me, Ekankar, Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad, Ekankar. Yes, and if you notice when you're saying it, Ekankar, like notice even the way the mouth moves and where the tongue flows, and how you'll be using your diaphragm muscle when we start to project it and sing and chant it together. I always like to know what it means, so I'm going to share with you the meaning. All is a blessing of the one Creator. May we receive realization through God's grace. All is a blessing of the one Creator. May we receive realization through God's grace. And I'll give you the artist after we close our class too, in case you're interested in playing this one. Now, this is the one and only mantra that comes with a warning. And the warning is, be cautious of how you're thinking. And so what we're going to do after we recite and chant this mantra for a bit, we're going to come back to our affirmation that we created, that positive statement of resolve. And that's going to be where we repeat it 3 times in our head. Hopefully you repeated it 3 times earlier, and then you're going to repeat it 3 times again in the aftermath. And then I'll go ahead and be 2 of your 6 times today, right? If you want to stay with that formula of 3, 6, 9. All right, let me get this song prepared. And it may take you a moment because she's singing it, right, to get it right. And don't worry, I've been told I'm tone deaf, like I can't sing in tune. I sing out anyway. I like singing in Sanskrit, so I'm gonna project it, even though I'm not gonna be like same pitch as she is. And hopefully you'll get the ring of it. Wanna chime in? We're gonna do this for 10 minutes, okay? It actually goes for like 30 minutes if you get the recording, and that could be your meditation. So sit up, take a deep breath. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. 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 Ek Onkar. When there's a break, it's a good time to take a deep breath. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. 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 Ek Onkar. Deep breath. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. 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 Ek Onkar. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. 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 Ek Onkar. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru Prasad. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad, Satguru prasad, Ekongkar. Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar, 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 Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar. Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar, 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 Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar. Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar, 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 Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar. Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar, 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 Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar. One more round. Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar, 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 Ekongkar, Satyam Guru Prasad, Satyam Guru Prasad, Ekongkar. Deep in silence a moment. You know the gist of your affirmation you created, you can just repeat it silently within 3 times. And if you need to open your eyes and read your slip of paper, go ahead and state your affirmation 3 times. So the artist, if you want to write their names down, I would suggest using these mantras as a tool. So the last one we just listened to, Ekankar, the song is actually called on the album, Expand into Intuitive Knowing. And the artist's name is J-A-I, Jagadesh, and I'll spell it Jagdeesh. Jagadesh. Expand into Intuitive Knowing, and it's the Ekankar one. The first one, Ramadasa Sase Soham. That artist is Snapdam Kaur. I'll spell it for you. S-N. I'm trying to find it. A-T-A-M. Snapdam Kaur. K-A-U-R. And that is on an album called Grace. And it's Ramadasa. So again, you can find that on YouTube, you can find it on any streaming service, or you can download it or buy the album if you want.
The one that we just did, say the meaning of it again, all of the blessing.
All is a blessing of the one creator.
Okay,
May we receive realization through God's grace.
through God's grace. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the last thing I want to say to end this workshop is we had this kind of mantra going at the tail end of our era at the other studio, and it was drop in, get real, yoga up. So the dropping in was getting out of the head and back into the body, back into the heart. The getting real is, getting real, breaking through the veils of illusion, being real with yourself, being honest with yourself, and finding out what is your truth and speaking and living your truth. And then the yoga up was about trying to level up, trying to increase your state of awareness and trying to increase your state of consciousness, which is what we try to do through yoga and meditation. So at this time, through all the chaos, we're being tested, and it's time for us to level up. So anytime, again, you're in that mode of fear or anxiety, how can you feel a little better, feel a little better, feel a little better, feel a little better? Can you use breath work? Can you use movement? Can you use your mindfulness? Am I safe right now? Am I okay right now? Are my needs being met right now? Just being in that question can help us to feel a little better, because generally speaking, they are. The mantras, definitely use those. One is for healing the trauma. Another one is for being alchemic for the mind. Using the 3-6-9 formula, I'm testing that theory as well, with your affirmations, and then just continuing to hit the mat as much as you can. And you don't have to do it formally with the mat. You could be walking in the park and do a couple asanas in the park, like at the bench, before or after you take your walk. You could do a walking meditation. That could be your practice. Those songs I cut off, if you noticed, so they actually extend.
Long.
And you could sit for, like I said, that one song I think is 23 or 30 minutes, and you could sit for 23 or 30 minutes and just being on repeat over and over again. The very last thing I would like to say is there's a lot of narratives out there. There's the conservative narrative, there's the liberal narrative. there's the media narrative, there's the conspiracy narrative, there's all these different narratives out there. If you choose to look at the science of astrology, astrology is saying that if you're reading the charts of the stars, and they say our lives are written in the stars, that there is going to be a collapse of the old system and a revamping or a creation of a new system. And when I say that to certain people, they're just like, oh my God, that's doom and gloom. If you choose to look at it that way, I choose to look at it on the positive side. Is the patriarchal age really working for us? No, we've evolved. And that is what we're going through now. So from a spiritual standpoint, we are evolving. From a scientific standpoint, even the planet is evolving. The Schumann's resonance has been on the rise, the poles are shifting. The earth goes through its natural cycles, and we're going and living through that cycle right now. And we can look at it as being terrible, or we can look at it as being like inspiring, like we're still here, we're still navigating the changes. So take that with you, take the little homework assignment with you, and I hope it helps to reset your minds. Thank you guys for coming.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you.